Welcome in to the Nap Bros podcast. I'm Nick, he's Andrew, and we are back for our continued conversation about sovereignty, the battle for the hearts and minds of men. And today we are talking about chapter 16, self awareness. Andrew, take it away.
Well, thank you, sir. Chapter 16 talks about self-awareness. Funny thing, he makes a good point about how everybody hears that term and just like, what does that mean? You know, you have some entrepreneurs are like, this is what self-awareness means. You got some, what's the words? What would you say Tony Robbins is like?
Motivational speakers.
Sure. You know, knowing who you
Or
are,
self
what
or
you
self
are.
help gurus or something like that.
There you go. Thank you. Guru is where I was looking for.
Yeah.
But what it means to you and what you take from it is really like a person-to-person thing. You know, it's not just who you are, but rather why you are the way you are. Is what Mickler's pointing out. You know, what caused you to be this way, what caused you to act this way, why, not what as well, but why you are acting this way.
I think it's interesting because in this particular case, like there's Gary Vaynerchuk has a lot to say about this, and I wonder if like what people have done is they've taken what Gary V says, because he does talk about self awareness, but he presents it. It's really interesting because when Gary V says, "Hey, I'm like." I wish people could be more aware of who they are and like what it is that they like to do, what it is they want to do. But he also like they take that and they're like, oh, that must mean I must be an entrepreneur. I've got to be, I've got to do my own business. I got to start my own business and stuff like that. And like, and to an extent, like, and he's been talking about it for years, like way before this book even came out. And I wonder if that a lot of people have like basically kind of taken this idea from Gary Vee and just changed it into, I need to be an entrepreneur. But even later on, Gary Vee's like, no, you've got to understand, like, not everybody can be an entrepreneur. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to run a business. But a lot of people just kind of like ignore that because they see kind of, or they imagine that running a business seems like this really glorified thing, like owning a business, having a business. I think I'm off a little bit. There you go. Center myself. Having a business is like this glorified thing. And so they're like, this is who I am. I must do this. And that's, unfortunately what a lot of people have kind of taken as what self-awareness is. But yeah, I like what Mickler says is it's like, it's understanding why you think the way you think, why you believe what you believe, why you act the way you do, why you get mad, why you get sad, and why you are exactly where you are today. So it's interesting because it's kind of like in my mind, like the way that I see Mickler's idea of self-awareness and the way that I see what Gary Vee talks about are slightly different. Mickler is much more along those lines, and this entire chapter is kind of like looking into the back, like looking into your past, kind of having this idea of what it is that from the past that is causing what's happening today. As where I think Gary Vee kind of looks at it as like knowing what it is that you what you're good at and what you like to do, and seeing where those basically and what you can also like make money at doing, not a ton of money but like just making money to survive, and how those three can intersect with each other versus you just have, well, I'm really good at this but I don't like doing it, or I really like this but I'm bad at it, or I'm really good at it, I like it, but I can't really make anything from it. And so kind of being mindful of that, but a lot of people take it to mean I need to start my own business. And I'll be honest, from my own perspective, like that was what I originally thought. And I think it was because like even our dad was like, oh, I'm gonna have a business, but you know how dad was like 17 businesses at one time. He's like, well, I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna do this. It's kind of like scatterbrained. And so like for me personally, like I thought just because the way dad was is like, okay, well, dad, one thing that dad did really well that I thought was really great was he owned property and was like a property manager basically for his own properties. And I think that he did that really well along with like construction and stuff like that. But like, there were a lot of other things that he tried to do. For me, I don't think I'm a business owner. I don't think I can run a business. I think there are certain parts of a business that I like to do, but running it, like I originally thought I could. I really thought I. But that to me is my idea of like what self awareness is. At least before reading this chapter.
Clearly, you have a lot to say about self awareness. Funny thing is, like it's crazy how, like, we're reading this book, all the podcasts I'm listening to, all the books I'm listening to, all the books I'm reading. It's like almost every little bit that I pull or I glean from these things kind of tie hand in hand.
Mhm.
So, you're talking about Gary V, which I haven't heard him say anything about any of this stuff. But funny story is I started reading one book that goes along with Mickler's idea here is like the subtle art of not giving yeah, the
Uh,
F
uh,
word. And
yeah,
basically, Mark Manson, if that's his name, if I remember correctly,
yeah.
says, all these gurus are shoveling crap. Yes, entrepreneurship works for some people,
Hmm.
but yes, you have to have the ultimate drive. Otherwise, you're just turning your gears and not getting nowhere. And, another the book I'm listening to by Simon Sinek, or if I'm butchering that
Simon
too, I'm sure
Sinek, the
like I
the
said,
find your
Sinek, I'm
why, right?
butchering it. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So
Or start with why.
start with why. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's like, why am I doing this? Why? So Mickle's like asking why you are the way you are, but Simon Sinek says people that start with why in business also are more successful because they're not trying to sell you some cheap product and not trying to glean it from you. And like he compares it to like Apple, that like Apple almost has like a cult following because like people will just wait and pay 2 or 3 grand for a computer versus just paying like $500 for a PC or whatever. And it's just
Right.
like funny thing is just like it just all ties together almost. Like what I'm saying is everything I've listened to kind of plays a part,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
scriptures, some podcasts about Bible study. It's like, man, like every single thing I'm listening to, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like you were just talking about YouTube, or not YouTube, but doing our videos, and like I just listened partially to the Joe Rogan with Mr. Beast,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
I don't even know. Have you ever seen Mr. Beast's videos?
I've seen some of them. They're definitely much more catered to like I feel like a younger audience, like
Oh
just
no,
kind of
my
the.
kids love them. My
Oh yeah.
kids just Mr. Beast all the time. Like they're just like Joe said, my kids love you to death, and it's just like, this man now he's doing these YouTube videos where he's like, you know, dubbing it in Spanish, dubbing it in Portuguese,
Yep.
and like it was just so funny. It's like I never even thought of that. Like we're all pumping out stuff in English,
Yeah.
about the rest of the stuff. But yeah, the why is definitely a great question. Problem solving for businesses, the question why, to find out what issues you're having, why you're having to get to the root cause, it's kind of the same thing. You're getting to the root cause of who you are, what caused you to be the way you are by asking why.
Yeah. So actually, I do want to kind of like play on what you're talking about, and even if we have to like limit the rest of the stuff that we're going or
There's
planning to go
no
through.
way. There's no way you're gonna limit anything.
We're no, no, no,
Like,
no.
don't give me a
We could
false
try.
hope.
We can
Don't.
work on it. We can work on it. We
We're
can do it.
gonna limit it.
We can do it. But why are we
It's really
doing
not
this
that long of a
podcast?
chapter. It's really not that long of a chapter. Like we could
That's
probably
also
make it
true.
through in like
It's
six
also true.
minutes if we stuck to the words here. You stuck
So
to your lines and I stuck to my lines, we'd be good to go. But we just unraveled.
but I wanted to ask. So why are we doing this podcast? In your mind, what's the reason for us doing this podcast?
Why I'm doing it is more or less it adds a more of a camaraderie ship, and it
Mm-hmm.
kind of allows me to speak about how I feel about a lot of things, and then also more time spent with my brother. He can call his mom whenever he wants, but he'll never call me.
That's not true at all. I think I talked to you way more than I talked to our mother.
But yeah, because of the podcast.
Well, I mean, besides the podcast. I mean, just calling, like FaceTiming, just
No,
whenever that
okay,
happens.
but no, I call you.
Well,
Anyways, but I feel like everybody wants a way to like I don't know, not so much. Like I would never just rely on like one thing as like a form of income. And we're not even
hmm
making money right now if we ever do start making money. But I think another thing is like most people want out of their podcast or out of their show to make money. That's the
hmm
what they're doing it for. How they're doing it, but why? Honestly, getting down to the why. It's like Cynic said. You can't really put into words why because why is not really developed in the right kind of mind, where your words are formed is not where your why is. Your why is more where your emotions are.
Oh,
So
okay.
you can't really put words to it. You just try and rationalize it to where people understand. And I'm
I
not
get
saying
that.
it's not true. Like I mean, but thinking about it, it makes sense. Someone asks you, why did you marry them? Well, how do I explain it? How do I explain that? Because I love
Especially if
them.
she's the one that asks.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I mean that's the example. And then it's like he's like, but then your emotions can run so far rampant over your logic.
Mm.
It's like the cult following or Apple. It's like these people are paying $2, $3, $4,000 more than any other device that'll do the exact same thing, the exact same way. But that's just they feel strongly about the cause, the
Right.
why. You know,
Right.
it's belonging to something. I
Yeah.
don't know if that was the same book or not, but wanting to belong was the other thing. Is that the same book? They're all getting
It
mixed up in my
it might
head
be it might
somewhere.
be the same book because it kind of sounds like what Cynic says. So like
Which
for
I've been
me,
I've been following Cynic on LinkedIn for years now. Like
yeah,
I've never even read any of his stuff. Like his little like presentations, like TED Talks he does are just
yeah,
so good.
yeah.
He's actually the only person I do follow on LinkedIn, honestly,
Wow,
besides
nice.
myself.
I'm following myself. So like I think the biggest I think for me like along the same lines of like our the why like I think I can articulate it at least from my perspective is that
It's a big word. Throwing out some words
it's
there.
there's a what perspective.
Articulate.
Oh, articulate. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So for me, the why of us doing this is like, yes, I do want. It is a form of camaraderie, com, companionship,
Yes.
or just like relationship. It's
Camaraderie.
yeah, camaraderie. There you go, camaraderie. That's yeah. You can't say camaraderie is the camaraderie ship. You can't use that. Camaraderie, in the sense of like being able to like talk to you and being able to kind of like go over things that we've kind of like analyzed ourselves and analyzing our own perspectives from and getting ideas and even like disagreeing at times and agreeing at times. I also would say like a second reason is because I do want to help other men to become better because I think that that's a huge thing and not saying like especially in the sovereignty set like I do want to help other men become better but eventually like I'd be okay with like trying to affect people as a whole, not just men but also women and anybody else that happens to get online and see us or listen to our podcast. I want that, and like to the extent where like I would be okay like if this is just what we do, if this is like if nothing ends up taking off from this, if nothing else happens out of this. Like I would ultimately like to become like a podcaster, like a full time occupation, but I'm not really gonna be like I think that's one of the things is like I'm not gonna be like heartbroken if we're not making money off of this. Like I think it's just kind of a fun thing, and I think it's good to kind of like put thoughts out there, and even to the extent like where if our children end up getting on this and seeing their dads get on their dads and their uncles get like just talk about it and talk about things that they're going through at our age and things that we've been through. So like there's that. Plus the other thing too is it forces me to actually try and like be a little bit creative with the videos and stuff like that. Like try new things about editing and working on it. And I get more and more excited. Here we are I guess this will be episode 19. But where I get to play with different editing bits and trying to add in new things and make things a little bit more uh, creative and a little bit more interesting in that perspective. So yeah, that's kind of my why for doing this. So all right, so let's talk about operating in the defaults. Okay, and so one thing that I made note of is this idea that basically operating in the default in my mind is just running on autopilot. So we have these scripts and we stick to those scripts. In my mind, it's just easier. But it what Mickler brings out is that in order to achieve a new outcome, because the thing is like he does say later on, he says running on default isn't necessarily inherently bad unless you want a new outcome. And so I guess it's that old adage of like insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting new results. And so if you want that new outcome, you've got to introduce something new. But even if we do something new, like how long are we committed to doing that new thing? Like it may cause us to revert back to the default because again, we're because maybe we're not as committed. Maybe it's not we're not answering the reason why we're doing it. Maybe it's just maybe the why is like something that's external, right? It's like I do want to look better, but maybe internally you're kind of always you're not changing the internals. You're changing the externals. So my example was diet and exercise versus mindset and inner monologue. Because like for me, when I was back in the States, I was losing weight. I was eating the right stuff. I was doing exercises and that was like a part of my life and I was really good at it. Then I got here to China and all of that just went to the side. And like the only excuse that I have is that basically I I wasn't like mentally like wanting it wasn't that I wasn't mentally wanting to change, but it was like I'd already made this huge drastic change of moving back to China. And now I'm like, you know what? Everything else can just kind of go by the wayside. And unfortunately I ended up gaining so I was down to 215 at my lowest and I ended up gaining how much 45 nope 55 pounds back. No, 45. Yeah, 45 pounds back because it was just like, there wasn't anything else. And so now it's like that kind of mindset of needing to be healthier and wanting to be healthier and wanting to do that no matter where I am, whether it's here in China or in the US or wherever. So that kind of
I
idea.
think some of the things too, like if I can just interject here for about
Go.
5 seconds,
No, I'll give you like
is
5 minutes.
you know you rank things in your mind as far as what you can not do and do, and so like the first thing to go is stuff like that because you
Mm,
don't rank it as high. You don't keep it number one in your mind. So even for me, getting back to where I am now, um, like I have not been in the gym, but there in the summertime, heck, I was going twice a day. Sometimes I was going to the gym and doing jujitsu at the same time. But now it's like I'm not even doing anything. I got a full time job. Like now it's just and I'm not upset, so to speak, but like I am getting tired of it. Like I want to be able to go do exercise and stuff like that because I don't want to be fat no more. I don't want to be big. I want to be big, but more like swollen. Um, but yeah, talking about defaulting and running on the autopilot, like I do it all day long. I mean, honestly, I drive to work the same way, drive back to work or back
mhm.
home the same way. I set up when I get gas. I always take lunchtime to go get gas.
Yep.
You know, um, Honestly, it is hard to just not go, 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 go. Like I set up with my boss to do training for like an hour a day. And like what I mean by that is like they have stuff where you can get certifications for SolidWorks and AutoCAD and all that. And it's like, um, even I got permission, but I still don't set aside the time to get it done because I'm always just busy going, 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 going. So Absolutely. There's some defaults that aren't bad, but then there's some that are. And then, the steps was, I wrote these down was becoming self-aware. You first have to understand the script. So, you know, you know what you do every day. You know what's routine and what's not routine. Analyze it. You understand what you're doing now. Analyze it. So, you look at the results produced and then proceed accordingly is what he says to do. So, if you know there's somewhere that needs a change, somewhere like I'm gonna get ahead of myself where it's not producing that you need it to do, you know, then you know what you need to do. You need to change it, 110%. Yeah, I felt like that was the last chapter. Was that this chapter? Is the thought serving me or hindering me?
Nope, nope. That's this chapter. Yeah, yeah.
Oh
That's
man,
self
I'm like
awareness.
these chapters run together for me, honestly.
Well, because last time we were talking about integrity. We were talking last chapter. We were talking about integrity, but in like more of like promising what you do and then doing that, like following through and basically like being a man of your word. Oh, I'm sorry. No, conviction. I'm sorry. Scratch that. Conviction. It's that idea of not really caring about what others feel about you and of caring about the opinions of some because those opinions may be like from experts who actually have done it. But in this one, no, this one is specifically talking about like that, like the like when you have certain thoughts about certain things, whatever it may be, whether like for me it's working out. Like it's definitely and I'll be 100% honest, I hate working out. I hate working out. Like it is not enjoyable for me. I don't want to get up and go for a walk. I don't want to get up and go like to the gym and it's not that I don't want to lift weights. I just don't want to go to the gym. Like when I'm at the gym, then I'm like, well, okay, I'm here. I may as well do something. And so like lifting weights and cardio and stuff like that. But one of the one of the things that I've had to like kind of like realize with myself, two things actually for me. The thought was is like number one, like I know like if I'm paying somebody else, if I'm paying a coach to help me, to give me guidance and stuff like that. Like I don't like coming up with a workout plan, so it's nice to pay somebody else to give me a workout plan. But then also like being mindful of like what food I'm eating. But because of the workout, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be more mindful of what I'm eating because like that's the only reason why like I'm like forcing myself to work out. Because if I don't force myself to work out, then I don't really care about what I'm eating, and so it's very easy for me to just put the weight back on. But if I'm like, okay, I've got to go and work out, like because I'm paying this coach, like it is a monetary thing, and so then, well, okay, if I'm working out, I don't want to have such struggles. So I definitely need to make sure that I'm eating right. And so that's definitely the thought that was like hindering me is like, I may pay a gym, but generally I don't really feel emboldened or feel bad if I don't go to the gym. I'm just like, okay, I'm just losing some money, whatever. But if I'm paying a coach, that's a different thing. It's like okay, because A, it's a little bit more expensive, and B, I've got that coach who's like sending me messages and saying, "Hey, where are you? Let's go. Let's get to the gym. Let's get some workouts done." And
Well, then the
so,
other thing, like I would say, like with you asking for somebody else to make you a workout, then you don't have to focus so much on what you're gonna do every day. You have a routine.
right,
Like I said, routines are good. I know I set my alarm for this time, but I know I don't know I have to get out of bed till this time to get ready and be out the door in 30 minutes.
right,
So it's like that's my routine.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah. Yeah. So
so
good. So conjuring up the past. So Mickler brings up this idea of conjuring up the past, like bringing up the past. And basically it's an opportunity to understand yourself and how your thoughts and beliefs came to be. And so I put in our notes that about gay guys in college story, and so it just so I understand. My brother's like, what? So I'll explain. Growing up, my whole life, before going off to college, was kind of like a, we'll just call it a bubble. It was a shield against like what was going on in the world.
I mean,
Especially like
most growing up times is a shield,
well, yeah,
honestly.
yeah, but I mean, well, I
Should
and
be.
not to get too far into parenting, but kind of like one of my thoughts is I don't necessarily want to shield my children when God blesses me with children. I don't want to shield them from what's going on in the world, but actually better prepare them for how to handle that and be mindful of it and know what's coming. But like growing up, I always thought like gay people were just horrible, despicable, just awful people. And it wasn't until I actually got into college and was actually around gay people to actually find out, oh wait, these people are actually they're just human. They're nice, they're sweethearts. While I disagree with their lifestyle and I you know, in my traditional beliefs and my Christian
Christian
beliefs, like I
upbringing.
think that they're, you know, they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing. However, that doesn't necessarily make them horrible, right? Like, and it goes back to that old adage, like hate the sin, not the sinner. But like, there's a lot of hating the sinner going on in a lot of like closed off Christian communities, and so being able to see that this is what I originally thought, but then having that changed in my mindset and my thought pattern is like, oh, okay, these people aren't actually horrible people. And so being able to adjust that was a huge step for me.
Well, I never thought they were horrible, anyways. I think everybody can be wrong in the sense of whenever they try and push off their beliefs on other people, and we've seen that a lot both ways nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, what I was pointing at though is like when you conjure up the past, it's not you're not doing it to sit here and just be like what ifs, because like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my god, I could spend all days and what if I did this and what if I did that, what if I did this, why'd I do this, I could spend years on that subject. But the thing is you don't. That's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to just figure out why you are the way you are and then figure out how to change it if it's for the better, or manage it to where it makes it better, or manage it to where it's more productive. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
never, you are where you are right now. You made your bed, sleep in it, whatever else. I have a real big tendency to like if I get super upset about something that happened, or like depending on how it goes. Let me not say something that makes me seem like a liar. Depending on what it is, like my emotions, I feel like I keep my emotions in check a lot. In the sense of like it does me no good to get emotional. Especially in a reactive state.
Mm.
There's
Yeah.
no benefit. There's no benefit me acting ugly towards somebody. But like even still, I still have, you know, what's the word? Impulsiveness is that's not even right, but whatever. Have an impulsivity to, you know, get upset, like when I'm driving behind a slow driver, like
Yep.
stuff like that. Like there's still
Yep.
that quick switch for me. So I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, but recognizing the benefit of seeing what you do when you're doing it, and how much it's producing or being productive in your life, and being able to change that is all you're doing with this past conjuring. Like that's the whole. It's an exercise just to understand where you're at and what you can do to change it.
See, like for me, one of the things like too, and I wanna ask you this, like, what do you think is something from the past that that should be conjured up and then changed? Because like his example, Mickler's example, is this
My
idea
brother moving
that
to China.
okay, it could be that. Yeah, okay, expound upon that. Let's go with that.
I don't know how else to expand upon it. I mean, I just simply stated it the most simple way I could. There's no easier way to say that. I tell my
Like,
wife that all the time. That is the simplest way I could tell you that.
well, like, okay, so let's talk about
Do I
what
think
what
you'd be more productive here? Probably not.
mm, probably some
Probably
truth to
worse.
that.
Yeah, he probably works here. That's probably a good thing you're over there where they keep you on lockdown 24/7. It seems like.
Does seem like that sometimes, especially now with COVID outbreaks happening all over the city. But like, so okay, so why does so what does that
Something for
do?
the past, the Adrian card.
So what
It
what's
changed.
yeah? So you're saying this idea of me being in China. So what is it that is like what specifically about that thought is making you like
So for
hindering
my
you?
benefit, let's say if you had stayed here in America,
Yeah.
in the US of A, the benefit for my productivity would be like, especially if you're living somewhere close, would be like you and I would hold each other accountable for working out. You and I would, you know, have that you know brotherly relationship that we've always had, but now it's
Mm-hmm.
at a distance. It's more or less just like bounce ideas off of, some of the. Let's just go with this. Let's say a podcast we want to do here. We could both be up at 9 o'clock at night instead of me being up at 11 and you being up at 11 the next day, and whatever the hour changes, kind of puts a hindrance on it, and then you're doing stuff for daytime, I'm doing stuff for nighttime. So there is some benefits and productivity for if you have been able to stay. Um, I don't know necessarily. I think let's go like this. How about this?
Okay.
Something from the past that needs to be conjured up and changed. Not that it needs to be changed, but could have been changed. Like if I had known, I didn't have to take 4 classes of calculus to be an engineer still. I wouldn't have done 4 classes of calculus and 2 classes of physics. There's still engineering jobs out there. Hell, there's jobs where I live at now or work at now they have application engineers and they don't even have degrees.
Really?
Right. Because they're more like salespeople, but they've changed it now. It's like, man, who'd have thought that you could just get an engineering degree without an engineering or
Mm-hmm.
engineering job without an engineering degree?
Right.
But I mean, it is what it is. There's no way, and that's what I was telling. Like feelings, like that kind of upsets you almost. It upsets me. Like if I'm being honest, it does upset me. But me getting upset, like the next one, emotions. Me getting upset, getting mad, getting angry, does me no good. A lot of
Right.
times, even if you did something about it with your emotions, it usually doesn't even go your way, too. There's
Right.
been plenty of times where someone's like complained about something, like, "Hey, he got 6 days off." Well, you know what they did? They docked him a day, and so it didn't even get you a day, so it didn't even benefit you half time. N- Examples, but you know, keeping your emotion in check for me is a very thing. Knowing when emotions it's kind of like I like to I'm gonna not quote but paraphrase the Bible where like he had that righteous anger when he went in there and flipped the tables in the temple. You know, there's time for your emotions to show through, but then there's times where you need to know when you need to have them in check.
Well, so going along with that. So yeah, getting into this idea of emotions. So Mickler does go into this idea that that we're being told to hide our sorrow and fear, but then also we're told to hide the anger. We're told to hide jealousy. We're told to hide rage, and that he does have men asking him how to stop or how to overcome these feelings. Now, for me personally, I don't think that I think that hiding is a bad term for this because I don't. It's more about like suppression. It's more about like pushing it down, like and pretending like it's not there. Like I guess theoretically sweeping it under the rug is, but it's I guess in my mind, it's not so much that we're being told to hide those; it's being more that we're told that we shouldn't have those. Now, me personally, so just taking like jealousy for instance, like I think that there are outlets that you should use in order to kind of like handle these emotions. Again, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with having them, of course, but like if you're jealous, like I think talking to I think this is where like having the community of men, like talking to another man, one that you can trust, one that you can feel comfortable with. Whether again for you and me, it's each other. We talk about jealousy, or it could be another, like for us, another Christian man that we could talk to who maybe is a little bit more mature, a little bit more older. Going back to this idea of conviction and getting the opinions of other people, someone who's been through a little bit more life than we have. Maybe not so much like a dad, because there's more emotional baggage there, but even like going and seeking out elders, which I mean, if your dad is one of those like that you can reach out to, then yeah, definitely do that, or grandfather even. But like for us, like for you and me, like reaching out to each other, talking to each other about these different types of emotions. Anger, going and punching a punching bag, or for me, writing about it. Like that was probably one of the hugest things. Going and lifting weights, even like anytime that there is anger that pops up, because it does happen, going and handling that. When it's sorrow, maybe talk again in my mind, talking to another man about it. But even at times, showing my wife that I'm sorrowful. But like I know that there's like there's this dichotomy, especially around like tears and crying and stuff like that, where or this feeling that if a man is crying in front of a woman, this is a bad thing. I would say if a man cries a lot in front of a woman, about different things that may be affecting him, I think that there could potentially be a loss of respect, especially for men who are single, who are interested in dating. If they're crying in front of their girlfriend, maybe their girlfriend lose some sense of respect for that. Because and I don't necessarily say like it's a woman's fault or a man's fault that this is happening, or like a patriarchal society that is causing this to happen. But I think it's more just maybe it's ingrained in us biologically to like as women to look at a man who is crying as like, okay, he's a little bit weaker, he can't really handle himself. And so that for me is like one of the reasons why I feel like talking to a man about it, and like even crying in front of a man about it, again, very trusted man. But every once in a while, showing my wife that these things happen. Every once in a while, letting those emotions, like allowing yourself to be vulnerable to the person that you care about. And then fear, even. There are certain things like talking to men about it. I think again is super useful to men. I don't necessarily feel I can talk to my wife about certain fears that I've got, like we want to have a child soon. We'd like to work on getting pregnant soon, but like I could talk to her about those feelings, about the fear of like what like raising a child and being a parent, and like the things that I have about being a father, those kind of like thoughts and ideas and stuff. But if it's like there are certain discussions like the fear of what the future holds as far as like money, or as far as where we're going to live, all these things, like that for me is more like my wife and I have had some discussions about that. And I would say like when that happens, then she ended up getting a little concerned and like worried as well. And to me, I'm like at that moment, when it has something to do with the future, or has something to do with like maybe a very touchy subject that she's not comfortable with, at that moment I'm like, okay, because even now I'm like, I've done it a few times in the past where I've talked about like I feel like I'm not pursuing what I should be pursuing, or doing what I should be doing, and she feels like that's her fault. And so I'm like, no matter how many times I tell her, no, it's not your fault, it's not because of you that I'm not doing what I want to do, but nevertheless, she still takes it as that. And so, like in that moment, I'm like, okay, so I need to hide, or I need to keep certain fears away from her eyes. Like there are certain ones that I can present to her, but the rest of them, I can't just bottle them up and keep them inside. I do need to talk to other people about it. I do need to pursue other relationships with men in those cases. Because again, even for me as a man, I don't necessarily want to talk to a woman about that, because I feel like that's a very vulnerable state, and I don't want to like open myself up vulnerably to another woman. There's no reason for me to do that unless it's mom. Mom, I'm okay with doing that too. Grandmas, family members, sure. just another woman that I happen to like work with or happen to be friends with. No, not doing that. Not even remotely close to that. Yeah. So
Mindset,
mindset.
understanding who I am, finding what makes you tick. Um, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. I think he points out here, like, are you God, the thing I hear the most these days is, are you worried about yourself? Especially from my wife. And so, like,
In what
you're
sense?
sitting
What do you
here,
mean?
well, you're sitting here worried about, I'm not going to explain that sense, but,
Oh, okay.
but the point is, like, this chapter, he's like, are you looking at everybody else and being resentful towards them and being like, well, they just have all this luck and all this other stuff, and or are you working towards that goal? Are you worried about yourself, so to speak, and trying to change yourself to be better, to be what you want to be? You know,
I think that's definitely
definitely,
something.
definitely, I have issues. Look, I'm gonna cut you off because I know I'm not gonna get to talk at all. Definitely, I have issues where I see there's a lot of things I wish had changed, but there's a lot of things that if I wasn't where I am now, a lot of stuff wouldn't be the way it is. A lot of the good stuff wouldn't be the way it is, but a lot of bad stuff too would be out of the picture too. So it's like that, and that's what he says. You can't deal with what is. You just look at it and you move on, learn from it. Don't resent others. What can you do to be better? And I am done with that part. So you are good to go, sir.
Well, no, all I'm like in relationship to this, like there are times where I've felt lost, and even to the extent like that, like what you were saying, like not necessarily resentful of others, but maybe like jealous. Resentful to me is just is that idea that like you hate the other person or you're upset at that the other person kind of has that what you don't. I would say like I'm more along the lines of jealousy, not necessarily hating the other person, but also being like, man, why am I not there? And I get frustrated about not being there, but then also at the end of it, I'm not doing anything about it. And so like even to an extent, this podcast is kind of that idea of now I'm trying to get to that point where I'm putting in the work to get to that point, to get to where I know I can be using the skills and the talents that I've got to be there. So
Yes.
yeah. All right.
Um, skill set.
Yep.
And this is another point I wanted to make. I was telling you about how all these books just tie in together. So we
Mm-hmm.
have this thing called Maxwell Mondays on Monday,
Okay.
where we sit down and we watch stuff about John Maxwell, and maybe there's somebody else too. So Mickler talks about margins in this, and it's more usually dealt with financial aspects, margin, how much you're spending versus how much you're making. There's your margin in there.
Okay.
The margin is like the benefit. The way Mickler talks about it, and for sure John Maxwell, is that the margin is the downtime you have to form your plans or ideas and to regroup. Basically, it's like your recharge time. You know, you can't just keep going all the time without having some downtime. So,
Mm.
do you have a margin in between different aspects of your life? So then, Mickler's like, get up and meditate in the morning and then go to bed and meditate, which, yes and no, I agree with. For me, I try not to listen to music on my way to work. That's 35 minutes of me just thinking. I also try not to check my phone before I get to work too, and that's a little harder. I'll admit that's definitely a lot harder. But that gives me 35 minutes to reflect. 35 minutes to think about stuff. 35 minutes just to maybe not even think, so to speak, but you know, just to not have something going on. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? That's that whole autopilot. Like I can just drift off in my own mind and just not even realize I turned onto the roads I need to turn on to, and I'm at work all of a sudden. You know what I mean? So it's like
Right.
it's not a bad thing, but definitely having to take the time. Like I told you about the training I want to do. Like I try to do it, but like usually just get so caught up. And I mean, the thing I love about my job now is like I go to work and before I know it, it's 4 o'clock. Like, but it's a bad thing too because it's like, dang, like I'm enjoying myself. I feel like, but it's like I'm so busy, I'm just not even paying attention to what's happening around me.
Right.
Um, let's see. I think I covered anything. Do you have a margin?
Well, so
Do you take time to reflect?
like I guess in my mind, like there are a lot of proponents for this idea of like meditation in the morning and then reflection in the evening and having these times where like so to me like margin is more along the lines of like both preparation and reflection. And I know he talks about it's reflection, but like I would say like in the morning it's kind of like preparation for the coming day. Like what do I need to do? What needs to get done? How do I organize the time? Like and how do I continue like is it going into like what it is that I want to get done for that day? And then in the evening it's more about a reflection of the day, like how like did I go into like did I achieve the goals that I wanted to that day, and were these goals beneficial to me, or were they just kind of like things that I'm like, okay, well, I've got to throw this in here just to have it done. And so I don't do that currently. I feel like I, I might. I know he talks about like since we talked about emotions. I know that he talked about having times of like reflection throughout the day of like when you're feeling these emotions. I would say for me personally, like I've had sometimes where like I'll just kind of like go into my office, plug in my headphones, and then just kind of like listen to some music while just kind of like relaxing. And also I don't really go in and try and figure out why it is that either I'm so stressed or why it is that I feel so busy or why it is that I'm not working on something that I should be working on. I don't really do that, and I think that that's something that I've definitely got to be more consistent about doing. And so
So I'm
yeah,
away on this. I actually have a John Maxwell book here. It's
what do you
Developing the Leader Within You 2.0. In the margin, he calls out, he's like, I'm going to read the back part. Hold on. The question he asked margin call, examine your calendar. How much white space does it contain? You know, so that's what he calls your margin, your little white space. So margin improves self-awareness. This is number one thing. Margin gives you needed time to think. Margin provides you with energy renewal. And then he talks about the Pareto principle.
Pomodoro?
No,
Oh,
but
what's
Pareto.
what's what?
Pareto.
Oh, okay.
They call it the 80-20 rule. And
Oh, okay.
so
Yeah, yeah.
like, he's like, ask yourself in order to get your margin, the 80-20 rule principle is what are the 20% of my possessions I get the most value out of? What are the 20% of the clothes I wear 80% of the time? What do I spend 20% of my leisure time doing that gives me 80% of my happiness? So it's basically focusing on the top 20% of everything you do
Mm-hmm.
that gives you 80% outcomes of what you want to do. So like if I do 20%, like I love to fish, but do I fish? No. My happiness for me, like these days, is spending time with my kids, or being able to get a good job done or whatever. But anyways, it's always and I don't know how you feel about coincidence or what's the other word, providence. Is that right?
Could be Providence, yeah.
But it's like it's crazy how like it seems like as far as this stuff is all falling into the same like week of like Maxwell Mondays. I'm learning about it. Book and Mickler's book. I'm reading about it. Uh, Simon Sinek on my drive home. I'm listening to it. You know, now if I can just get the other 20% of my life that gives me 80% of my problems. But yeah, definitely, it's crazy how everything ties together. But let me ask you this:
Sure.
reading this chapter, have you even contemplated what you do and changing it? Like it says, replacing the script. You know,
So so to
I
to
I
be
like your coffee call. I agree. I could get off some coffee.
Yeah, I mean that's I would say, so for me, replacing the script, I guess ultimately, like, it's not just internal scripts that I've got, like in my mind, because like I feel like maybe we were like born with this like positive internal script that was going on, but then certain things or certain people or certain news or certain other aspects from the outside world have like brought in changes to the script that have kind of turned it into a negative thing. Um, but like for instance, like I do know, um, one of the things he kind of brought up earlier is this idea that this guy who wants to lose weight, he just looks at himself as a fat lazy slob. And so like, but you've got to change that, because the thing is, like, if you consider yourself a fat lazy slob, you have that script of like being these three particular things, then you're not really interested or not really moving towards changing that, because this is the script that you're telling yourself. But I mean, you may be fat, you might be lazy at times, you may be sloppy at times, but that doesn't necessarily turn you into a fat lazy
Right,
slob.
that doesn't define you.
Right. And so in that particular case, so
Unless you let it define you. It's like
right.
I try and tell my significant other, if I hear things over and over again, how long before I start living up to them?
Hmm.
It's like that last little piece, that last line puts in there is for me 100%. Uh, uh, words. What you tell yourself is powerful. So you know, make sure what you're telling yourself is benefiting you.
Yeah.
Make sure it's serving you. And also, people around you, if they're not sitting there raising you up, maybe it's time to move along and find somebody that will. Friends, family.
I mean, I agree definitely. But I think also, like, I think some people can turn this into like delusion and be like, no, I am I mean, so yeah, this is gonna be so. Oh man, this is gonna be such a controversial thing. But like this whole like body positivity movement, and just as a fat guy, like I'm like, it bugs the crap out of me.
My
Uh,
favorite is the dad bod.
well, yeah. Even that, like going into this acceptance of like, oh, okay, well, it's okay for me to have a dad bod. It's okay for me to have this kind of body and stuff. And like, because the thing is, like, for me, like, it was always, even to the extent, and I'll go this. We even heard about a negative script that I kind of tell myself. Is this idea that, going back to this idea of also like conviction and relying on other people, or integrity and relying on other people. This idea that like I need a coach in order to set up a workout. That's a script that I've been telling myself, and to an extent, I would say it's not necessarily true. Like, can I set up workouts? Like, I could set up workouts. Like, if I can lesson plan for a week or a month in advance, why can't I set up workouts of things that I need to do a week or a month in advance? And kind of, in essence, use that margin time to, like, maybe at the end of the week to set up for the next week of the workouts that I'm going to do. But I have this negative script that it's like, oh, I can't do that. I just don't have the time, or I just don't, have the energy. I'll tell you one that I did change is this idea of like, oh, I'm too busy. I can't like make food. I can't, I can't go out and buy groceries and stuff like that. Like, it just takes too much time. But now that I'm like actually in the process of, hey, making food, going out and buying groceries, or ordering groceries to be delivered, and cooking the food and stuff like that. All of a sudden, I have the time. It's amazing, but it's realizing that like there are other things like that I'll accept, like even to the extent where I will tell tell myself that I can't do this because I'm too busy. But actually, what ends up happening is I actually end up having plenty of time, just because normally I'll just be watching YouTube, or I'll be goofing off on the internet, or I'll be doing something else that isn't really benefiting me. The other aspect is like even sitting there. One of the negative scripts that I definitely need to change is when I come home from work, instead of sitting down and just turning on YouTube, which I tell myself, oh no, it's fine that I do that because that's my time to relax. But the problem is I can sink myself into a like 2, 3, 4 hour hole of YouTube, just consistently watching, versus actually going and doing something, like actually producing content for YouTube, or going out and making this podcast reach more people, or even developing other podcasts, or developing other relationships to meet with people who could challenge me and make me a better person. But those are scripts that I definitely still have. One that I've changed is definitely this idea of not having enough time to cook and to shop, but I do, and I am. Now it's going in and changing the script of, well, I don't really have enough time to make lesson plans, or even to this extent, like, well, I'm a terrible institutional teacher, like I can't teach at an institution. I do better at doing like one-on-one, or with students who actually give a crap. But that's also a negative script that doesn't actually help me get better at teaching these types of students, ones that have no interest. And so, like, yeah, I think that there's a lot of ones. Even the ones that I wrote down, like removing Coke Zero, like I tell myself, no, it's perfectly fine to have Coke Zero because it's bubbly and it's sweet, but it's not good for my health. Same with coffee, how much coffee I drink in a day. Same with vaping, like even now, like in my mind, I'm like, oh, it's okay to vape, and to an extent, like I'm gonna quit in April. Like that's when I'm quitting this whole vape thing, but I know it's gonna be a challenge for sure.
What always is.
Yep. Well, you got anything else you want to finish us off?
Um. Well, now go ahead.
All right. If you're listening on your favorite podcast, please make sure that you subscribe and leave a comment and a review. This helps us like kind of reach out to other people. We want a lot of people to hear what we've got to say, and to communicate and to have a conversation with us. If you're on YouTube, subscribe, click that bell, hit the like button, leave a comment, let us know what you think and what you're feeling. You'll also see the sovereignty set on YouTube, and our last video on conviction. Oh no, our last video will be actually nothing to do with sovereignty, but just kind of a good conversation between Andrew and I. I'm Nick.
I'm Andrew.
And as always, you have an open invitation to our conversation.